was 2.0%. From 2007 and 8, 2.7%. Within the district graduation rate for Barringer High for 2009 reached 89.3%. So it drastically dropped. I need this committee to provide me with an updated copy of Barringer High School's dropout performance measure results reviewed by the State Department of Education. I requested it from the North region a week ago, and I haven't received it. One last thing. There was a principal that came up here and spoke tonight about the principal of Barringer High School. I need for her to stop emailing, texting, or whatever it is that she's doing to these students to talk bad things about the principal of Barringer High School. I will not allow that. I'm not a lover of principals, but I think that it's very wrong for her to send an email to a particular student in this school, and I will make sure you guys get a copy, to have these students come up here and speak badly about the principal of Barringer High School. And I just think that's totally wrong.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Williamson. Next speaker.
Donna Jackson.
Let's make this quick, y'all. Donna Jackson, 128 Smith Street. To all my charter school parents, staff, and students that are in here, let me first say I love you, but this is a public school fight right now. And it's no disrespect. But what I'm going to tell everybody in this room we're going to do, including you folks at the charter schools, we're going to follow this money. Because the money is the root of all evil. This co-sharing, this real estate grab, this getting us to fight each other, love you to death. But y'all need to go to y'all board meetings and ask your board members why your schools are being forced to co-share. I'm not saying you can't come here, not saying that we don't love you, but when we want to come into a meeting and disrupt each other's agenda because you guys been told that we're taking the money from you, no kid has any less value than any other child. And they have now allowed us to start this fight. And no one in Newark Public Schools right now is taking a stand to stop this fight. And I'm standing here tonight, the baddest mama in this state, asking everybody, put it down, let's come to the table, and let's work out our differences, but we cannot continue to come out here and attack each other, because the only thing that happens is all the kids lose. At the end of the day, there is no school out here, no matter what the test school performances are. No school in here has the level of technology that it needs. Don't have it. No school has the science lab that it needs. No school is giving the kids the in-school experiences that they need. Now, with me saying that, Shavar and the rest of you board members, fix the charter schools. But let's now talk about Newark Public Schools. Let's talk about our babies who are being left by the side while we've allowed a system to come in that can pick and choose who they do and don't want, while we got to accept everybody, including the ones they kick out. We're going to stop that. And I'm going to ask the charter school parents to join me and stop allowing your buildings to kick our children out just because they don't like the way they dress or they had an argument with a particular kid. We cannot throw any of our children away. If this education reform, which is not really reform, it's supposed to be about taking care of all our students, then that's what it needs to be about. We got 100 people in the public school and 100 people in the charter school that need to be fired immediately. There's no difference on either side of that aisle. None whatsoever. Because in every system that there is a degree of failure. We will all agree with that. Now, if y'all don't want to agree with that, we'll talk after the meeting out in the hallway. But I'm telling you right now, I know there's a degree of failure. Because my child went to a charter school, DJ. And it wasn't working well for him. So when he went to Malcolm X Shabazz, he was not at all prepared for what high school was bringing him. Ain't ashamed to say it, but I didn't send him there. His real mama did. Because it would have been my choice. He'd have never walked into one of those buildings. But I'm standing here tonight to tell you this. The co-sharing plan hasn't been told to either one of us on an even level. It's okay, I'm gonna finish. The co-sharing plan, the takeover of schools, has not been told to either side, truthfully. And it's all right. And what we have to do, Shavar, with your leadership, so that we can kind of leave you alone a little bit, this is why we're fighting you so much, is you need to take the lead and you need to start telling the truth and give all of us the right information so we can make adequate decisions. We'll stop fighting you when you start being truthful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Donna Jackson. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Donna Jackson, as always. Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay. Hermio John Baptiste.
Next speaker.
Parson says that Donald can speak, that we've allowed him to pass.
No, we cut everybody else. We can't leave.
No, they cut themselves.
No, but we said no candidates, and we can't pick and choose.
No, they took themselves over.
There they did.
Moses DeJesus.
But I thought there's a rule. If one speaks, you gotta let everybody speak.
Hi, my name is Hermio Jean Baptiste, and I'm here on behalf of American History High. My concern is that first you guys moved the kids to Montgomery, and they're dealing with the new adjustment now, and now you guys are planning on moving them to Camden Middle, which make no sense. These kids are one of Newark's top kids, and they're willing to succeed, but you guys are treating them like savages, which make no sense. You're supposed to be for the children. What happened to No Child Left Behind? Because what I could see is that the kids are being left behind, which makes no sense. What happened to No Child Left Behind? Because all these people in here are concerned, which makes no sense. And you guys need to do something about it and stop sitting in your offices and not serving the students like you should be.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay. Excuse me. Moses DeJesus and Claudia Pector. Claudia Pector here? Pecor?
Moses De Jesus, Claudia Pecker.
Michelle Johnson? Is someone coming down?
Next speaker.
Nicole Miller?
Next speaker.
Denise Holland?
Next speaker.
Tiffany Byrne?
Next speaker.
Ana Maria Garcia?
Next speaker.
Linda Williams?
Next speaker.
Novlet Gray Britton?
Next speaker.
Tanya Way?
Next speaker.
Denise Crawford?
I think this is...
No, I think we got 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Denise Crawford, 102 Prince Street in Newark. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I may not agree with everybody that's here, but anyway, thanks for being here. On behalf of Science Park, we do thank you for agreeing that that school does not belong at Science Park. We have a great administrator, but even more, we have the greatest children there are. And I'm very proud of Science Park students, I really am. To go on, I want to speak for the Global Village Zone. I want to say that, again, we have worked so hard to try to put things together. And I think that that spreads all over the Newark Public Schools. That everybody tonight, they're fighting because they love their schools. They love education. They love the fact that they want their children to be educated. I want to also thank Teachers. Teachers are my hero. I think that we're at the point where we do have highly qualified teachers in the city of Newark. Yes, there's still some that need to go. But on the most, we have teachers that believe in educating our children. And we need to start talking about the things that are working in this city. I know there is a DC at Barringer right now who gave up being at Science Park because she believed that Barringer needs the best. And I want to personally tell her, I love you and I thank you. We did not want her to go, but she had to go to do what she needed to do. We need to start grabbing hands across Newark and start thinking about that we need to do the right things and to start talking about the things that are going right. All you're talking about is things that we already know that are wrong. There are people who are fixing the right things. History High, I love you, okay? So I want to say that there are great people in this city. Stop fighting each other and start connecting, and the only thing that you can do is make sure your own children get the right education. Stop
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. That will end the public participation component of the meeting. We have a budget hearing tomorrow. We have a budget hearing tomorrow with another opportunity for public participation tomorrow. We're going to have a hearing on the co-location plan next Thursday, the 31st. That'll be another opportunity for public participation. We're going to have another business meeting April 5th for another public participation meeting. We said at the beginning, we're going to have 2 hours of public participation. We're going to have, yes it is. What pages?
Jeffrey.
I'll show you later. We had 90 minutes. 90 minutes, we extended for 30 minutes.
Jeffrey.
Again, we will have public participation tomorrow. We will have public participation March 31st. We'll have public participation again April 5th. We had public participation for another 2 hours last week. So there's plenty of opportunity for the community to express their perspective about the plans before the board. Absolutely.
200 people waiting outside to get in.
Can we put the people who didn't speak first on the list?
Yes.
For which meeting? For tomorrow? Or? For those who didn't get an opportunity to speak tonight, you will be first at the next board meeting. So whoever didn't get an opportunity to speak tonight, you'll be first. If you come tomorrow, if you're on the list, you'll absolutely. Whoever's on the list who didn't get to, we'll get to tomorrow, consistent with the limits on public participation. But we have more meeting to go to. Just email. Our meeting isn't finished. Hello? The public participation.
I'm staying for this. That's all.
Hello? We're going to go from the list. So whoever's on the list, we're going to go down the list. Tomorrow and then the meeting after that, we're going to go down the list.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Tomorrow.
Again, tomorrow at the budget hearing, whoever's on the list, if you have a budget-related question, you'll go first. We're going to have a co-location forum March 31st. If you have an issue that's not budget-related that deals with co-location, you'll go first at that meeting. Then we'll have another meeting April 5th. So we're going to have 5 meetings in the next 3.5 weeks, which is a ton of opportunity to make sure we've heard from everybody.
Mr. Chair. I would like to comment to some of the speakers who spoke here tonight on some very serious issues that the Newark Public Schools are facing. If I could please have the attention of everyone in the room, because we want to address some of these issues that have been brought before us.
What did she say? What did she say?
One issue I want to address is a speaker said, when did corporations gain interest in Newark Public Schools? That is a valid question, because 23 years of me being in this city as a student in this district,
We need to pass this.
when my principal at Louise A. Spencer, who was Dr. Brown, tried to bring in corporations to help Louise A. Spencer to go to the next level, corporations turned us down just because we were from Newark, New Jersey. So we have to understand that corporations gain interest in our city when we start selling our city. That's when corporations start gaining interest in our city. I also wanted to address our schools. A lot of charter school people came up here and said that our schools are failing and their schools are not failing. But the reality is all schools in Newark are failing. Whether you're public, whether you're charter, you're failing. And one thing about the research speaks for itself. Every time Newark hit the bar, the state raises the bar. So the reality is we have people that in power who is against us hitting the bar. So we need to realize that our enemies are not in this room, but our enemies are down at Trenton, who said our children are not the best children in the city of Newark. People who are downgrading our children, they are our enemies. Whenever we have a governor who go to Washington, D.C. and say our children are terrible, that is our enemy. So we need to realize that our enemy are not in this room, but our enemy is down at Trenton. Our enemy is the person who tried to make decisions on behalf of our district and never walked foot in our schools, never taught in our schools, never been in our classrooms. That is the enemy. So we need to realize who the enemy is. And I believe what the speaker said, this fight had been like the Bloods versus the Crips, charter schools versus public schools. The reality is we all need to get to the table and find out how to improve our schools. And until we all are willing to sit at the table together, we will continue to fail in this district. We will continue to fail in this city, and our degree in this city will mean nothing. I also wanted to touch on a point about how our governor and this administration is robbing public schools but expanding charter schools. I am a product of public schools. I am a product of Newark Public Schools. I went to Louise A. Spencer, I got kicked out of there. I went to Hawkins Street School and I graduated. I went to Arts High School. They tried to kick me out, but I fought to stay in Arts High School because I believe in this district. I believed in the leadership of our teachers. I believe in those who came to our schools every day and said that we will be something. So we got to really understand that Newark Public Schools is under attack. And not just Newark Public Schools, but black leadership is under attack. So we need to understand that we only have a few black principals, a few black and Latino principals. We only have a few black men who are in leadership in this district, and I believe that it's up to us to protect them, because I believe that some of these plans are out to hurt our black leadership in this district. Until we as a people get organized, our black leadership will fail until we come together as one and understand that no individual person is under attack. It's us as the majority of the people that's under attack in Newark, New Jersey. I also, see, since we had to break our comments at the end, I got a whole portfolio of comments. So we also got to understand that our district have to do a better process when it comes to evaluating principals, because we have too many principals in this district who are putting out children with IEP just because they're classified as IEP just to try to raise the bar of their school. when a principal say, my school is successful, this is what you ask them. How many children in your school is IEP classified? We had someone come up here and talk about the current administration of Barringer. They said that kids are being put out because of IEP. But the truth of the matter is, we look at every administration under Barringer, every administration has been attacking children with IEP and sending them all over this district. So the reality is, this issue did not just begin yesterday. This issue has been going on and going on for years and years and years. And because certain people are not empowered no more to try to do these things, they are mad and they are angry as hell. And they're trying to move people out the way. And that's the bottom line. We also, at the last board meeting in December, I asked for an update of the pilot program at Arts High School and for William H. Brown children. I also want to reiterate at this board meeting that I still want that update. I need an update on all pilot programs that's going on in this district, their success rate and their failure rate.
Wait, Mr.
Thank
Lewis,
you. God bless y'all. Love you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. A couple things. We still have board business to handle tonight. So for those who want to stay for the rest of the board meeting, if you wouldn't mind taking a seat, we'd appreciate that. For those who don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, if you wouldn't mind vacating the aisles, we would appreciate that. Also had a request, we need the head man. Apparently there aren't any toiletries in the women's bathroom, so if the head man could help us out with that, we would appreciate that. Again, for those who want to remain for the rest of the board meeting, please take a seat. For those who do not plan on staying for the rest of the board meeting, please vacate the aisles. We'd appreciate that. Again, we have a hearing on the budget tomorrow night at Central High School at 6 o'clock. We're going to have a forum on the co-location issues and new school models March 31st. We will have another board business meeting April 5th. April 5th. Again, tomorrow night, Central High School, 6 o'clock, the budget hearing. March 31st, Science Park, 6 o'clock, forum on co-location. April 5th, business meeting for further board consideration of these proposals.
Chair Jeffries?
Yes, Ms. Wolf.
Let me indicate that tomorrow will be the budget hearing at Central High School between the hours of 6 and 8. There will be approximately an hour for public participation on the budget.
Again, tomorrow, public participation tomorrow needs to deal with budget-related issues. We will have a forum on the 31st, business meeting on April 5th to deal with additional issues. So again, if folks wouldn't mind vacating the aisles, either taking a seat or vacating the aisles, we'll continue with the rest of the meeting. Only point I want to say in the chair, there was a lot of important issues that members of the public raised throughout the public participation. A lot of very serious issues, a lot of very pressing issues. And the bottom line for me is my commitment is to make sure every child has a great education. And I'm not really interested in the label for the school. If it's a great traditional school, if it's getting the job done for kids, that's what matters. If it's a great charter school, if it's getting the job done for kids, that's what matters. If it's an in-district contract program for kids and it's getting the job done, that's what should matter. If it's a bad charter school, we should close it. If it's a bad district school, we need to reform it. If it's a bad in-district magnet program, we need to get rid of it. At the end of the day, what we're here to do is to educate babies. If we're not getting that job done, regardless of the kind of the school, we have to address it. And I would hope that we can have most of our conversations around the outcomes and evidence as it relates to these proposals for children. That is the bottom line of our district. We are here to produce great outcomes for children. That needs to mean 100% are getting out of a high school and are work and college ready. And until we get to that point, we're not where we need to be. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And also, I want to emphasize that we need the whole city, regardless of race, regardless of color, regardless of religion, regardless of ward, to work together on these issues. This is not a racial issue. This is not a geographic issue. This is not a gender issue. Every parent wants a great education for their kid, regardless of any other issue. And we should be able to work together on those terms. The Vice Chair.
You'll be here on the...
Yeah, I know, but the full board meeting.
Vice Chair.
Okay. What's this? Can I hear me? I'll be brief, but it's some things that I think were said that needs to be addressed. I just want to echo some of the things that Shavar said. First and foremost, we have to care about all the kids. All the kids matter, no matter where they go, they all are kids. But I am for a public school system that helps, that teaches all the kids here in the city of Newark. That's what I'm for. As an advocate for children, this is what we're supposed to be for. As a parent, I know what it is to struggle, to send some of your kids to private school, to send some to public school. But I've always wondered, what can we do and why we cannot make our North Public School beneficial for all our children, that everybody wants to go to the North Public School. I want to just speak about Dr. Jackson at George Washington Carver. I would be really remiss if I didn't talk about this extraordinary principal. This principal not only helps the students in the school, but he really helps the whole community. I had the opportunity to work with him on many different projects, and it would really be a sad day if he is not in George Washington Carver as a principal. He is George Washington Carver. Any place you go within the city of Newark, especially in the South Ward, when they hear of Dr. Jackson, he commits himself wholeheartedly. So I'm going to talk with this board and see what we can do to keep him, because if anyone needs to be kept in that school, it's Dr. Jackson. Let me just also say this, in terms of co-location and closing of schools. One of the things I think is so important is that we tell the truth. I think we really should, or we would do a disservice to ourselves and to the community. I think our president may be a little shy about things, and this is not to boost him, but just to tell the truth. We believe and know that parents and the community should be at the table. But I'm just going to say, Shavar, our president, Mr. Jeffries, fought for us, even ourselves, to come to the table. That's the truth. That is the honest truth. We were not going to be involved. Decisions were being made, and we weren't involved. So we had to fight to get at the door, and we had to fight, and that's why you see now that they have a coalition of parents and community people now coming to the table. I really would be remiss if I didn't say that he was the first person to say this is wrong, that if anybody needs to be at the board, the people who were elected to represent the community, to represent the school district, they should be at the board. The parents and the community should be at the board. That's the truth in terms of what was happening. And when I'm speaking now, speaking not entirely for the board, but I'm speaking for some members, but I think all the board members really care about the kids. We may not always agree with the community, different parts of what we discuss, but I really don't think it's one person in this room or throughout the city of Newark who really don't care. And that's why I really have to say some some of the community people that spoke this evening, they said the right thing. We don't need to fight each other. That's an old game, divide and conquer. We need to come together even if we don't agree. I say come to Central High School. I say come to Science Park on the 31st. Even if we don't like what each other saying, let's talk, let's make a difference. Because as long as we stay divided, that's it. Also, one of the speakers said something about us getting fat off of their tax money. One thing people know, I will respond when someone says, I don't care about the kids. I'm a lifelong resident here. I spent my entire life fighting in this community. But to say we living off the fat, we pay taxes here. The board members do not get paid a red penny, and we didn't ask for it. But let's just keep the record straight. No one is getting paid off of that. Last but not least, I know how you feel in terms of the mayor taking over the school. One speaker said that he haven't heard of a mayor anyplace else. Well, we saw it in New York City. Now, does it make it right? No. So I'm just going to put myself out here, which I've done most of my life, is that I've heard personally the mayor says he doesn't want to. So if there's a motion, I would like to be the first person to say, no, we don't want the mayor to be in charge of our schools. We were elected. The state doesn't need to be in charge. We all, and this is not just something to say for applause, this is something so serious. It's happening all over the country. All over the country. So, as people who were elected to be on this board, the decisions should come from us. But as you know, this is a state-run district, and we should return to local control. I was there when they took over. We're still here, and we have to unite to fight to make that change. That's basically what I want to say for all of us here and in our community. Let's fight for our kids. As Chair Jeffrey said, the most important thing is our children's, not politics, not games, not money, but our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Ms. White.
Just wanted to comment very quickly on some of the community thoughts. One, I wanted to say that the passion here tonight was incredible. The passion around education was incredible tonight. And I think that everyone is here for the same reason, to make sure that children have the best possible education, the best possible choice for education, and the best possible outcome. So the passion that surrounds that is incredible. And I will have to reiterate what Board Member King said in reference to Chair Jeffries. The honest truth is that he had to fight to get us at the table. The same way that the community found out about co-locations, as did we, as did the board members, at the same time that the community did, in tandem, actually. So we are fighting to be at the table. We are fighting to get access to information. We don't have a secret peephole into what is being done. And so just wanted to say that, and again, wanted to commend the community on their passion in making sure that our children have the best possible outcome in their life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. White. Any other board members? Okay, so we'll move to this report of the State District Superintendent.
I just basically,
Actually, gotta come back.
my report is just simply good evening to those of you who are still here. I'm just very proud of my community this evening. I'm just very proud of my community this evening. At the last board meeting, I shared some information and I asked you, there are some actions that you needed to take, and obvious to me, you have taken and you have stepped up. And that's on my report. I'm very proud to be in this position to serve you, and I'm very proud of my community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Terrell. We have a resolution to rename the gym floor at Weequahic.
It's actually the basketball court.
I'm sorry, to rename the basketball
Arena.
floor at Weequahic High School.
No, it's actually,
It's more than the floor. It's the whole basketball arena.
Okay, to name the entire gym, the gym area at Weequahic High School in honor. Where's that resolution? Okay, it's in here. Thank you. So we have a resolution before the board. We had first reading last week at the business meeting to rename the gym area at Weequahic High School in honor of Les Fine, who is a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director at Weequahic High School. He served in the Army. He was first hired by the Newark Public Schools in February 1949. He's a longtime teacher and athletic coach. He was very successful in his coaching at Weequahic. He won 40 consecutive games between 1966 and 1967. In 1967, the Weequahic team under Coach Fine's leadership was first in the country, won the Group 4 state championship. He was recognized as the Coach of the Year in 1967. Coach Fine's teams won the Newark City League title 8 times, the Essex County title 3 times, the state sectional title 7 times, and the state overall championship 3 times. He was inducted into the Newark Athletic Hall of Fame, the JCC Metro West Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, and was the first class of Weequahic High School's Hall of Fame. Les Fine, whereas Les Fine is considered a legend at Weequahic High School with a record during the 1950s and 60s that has never been matched, whereas as a retiree, Les Fine has continued to devote his time to his beloved school and his basketball teams, and whereas after his death in 2007, Les Fine's family established a $100,000 endowment in his name to provide scholarships for deserving students at his alma mater, the great Weequahic High School. Now therefore be it resolved that the basketball arena at the Ronald G. Stone Community Gymnasium located at Weequahic High School shall be named the Coach Les Fine Basketball Arena. This action is supported by the Weequahic High School community and the Weequahic High School Alumni Association. Do we have a motion?
Yes, we do.
Okay, do we have a second? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The resolution is passed. Barbara, do you have parent recognitions tonight, or we're not doing
No,
that?
we're not doing
Okay. Do you have the student rep report?
No.
Okay. So we'll now move to the voting portion of the agenda. Why don't we deal with the academic and finance section separately? So I know at least one board member has a question about the legal one. We're coming to that, but let's first deal with academic and finance separately, because I know we have a board member question on the legal one. Does any board member have any questions, concerns about any element of either the academic services or the financial portions of the agenda?
1 second.
Does this include just what you got it on?
Yeah.
I do.
Mr. Lewis?
For the academic 2011, 2012 professional development plan, I didn't get a chance to go over that whole plan, so I just
This is the newer one.
need some explanation on what the plan is.
I'm sorry.
Can I speak on that, please?
Ms. White?
Board Member Lewis, as part of the curriculum committee, that was discussed during the meetings, and they went through a very thorough process in explaining the whole curriculum to us and the timeline for which the curriculum was to be rolled out. It is incredibly comprehensive. It deals with grades K through 12, everything from math to science to English to language. Incredibly comprehensive, and in fact, if I can recall, I sent you emails outlining exactly what was discussed in those meetings as well. So I think that even if you refer back to those emails, you'll be able to figure out what this, the educational curriculum is about.
Mr. Lewis, you have any other I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah. I'm just, I'm kind of tired right now. So I know that I wasn't at the last curriculum meeting, committee meeting. I ain't gonna lie, I'll tell the truth, I wasn't there. So that's why I'm not clear on what's on the agenda. So since I'm not clear on what's on the agenda, I'm just gonna abstain from the vote.
Okay, any other questions of any board members about any element of either the academic services or the finance parts of the agenda? Ms. Wilson?
Good evening, Chair Jeffries, Superintendent Terrell. For the finance part of the agenda, I would like to note that there are 2 additional finance items. We do apologize for the lateness of the submission of the items. However, since we have no board meeting in April, there is a concern of allowing these to lag until the May time period. Both items are in your packet, the orange folder. The first one is for the procurement of a comprehensive web-based special education computer system. This is the district asking the board's approval to enter into competitive contracting. We will not be awarding a contract. We are, in fact, looking to go out for an RFP, and we must use the competitive contracting process. The second item is a full curriculum software. It is the award of a contract to Pearson Education located in Mesa, Arizona. And this particular product will allow us to purchase Success Maker full curriculum reading and math grades K through 8 software for students at risk of academic failure. And it will be used specifically at Martin Luther King School. And we will be purchasing 30 licenses with maintenance, on-site training, program implementation. And that is for a total at a cost not to exceed $40,417. Those are the 2 items that are additional to the finance agenda.
Ms. Wilson, regarding the web-based, so will that enable anyone in the district, whether it's a child study team member or case manager, to basically track how kids are progressing through the child find process from identification through implementation? Is that what this is about, or what?
This will be, to my understanding, the automation of the IEP process, the individual educational plan process. We currently have a system called Encore, and we are looking to replace that. The technology has improved somewhat since the district's procurement of the Encore system. And as you know, we've upgraded to Power School and want to be sure that we are in line with that. So this system will allow, I would say, child study teams and people like that to make notations in the IEP for individual special education children.
Yeah, I think this is wonderful because I'd imagine because it's web-based, that should mean that any person in the district should be able to access IEPs in real time. You know, we've had challenges in terms of the implementation of our IEPs. So I think this sort of technologically based mechanism to keep track of our kids through the process is wonderful. So I'm very excited to hear about this initiative.
Let me caution you that we don't actually have the software. We are going to try to find it, and we have seen products out there that will support the needs that we have.
Right. No, but I think it's great that the district is taking these steps. I think that's wonderful. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Wilson about or for anyone about any item in either the academic or finance parts of the agenda? Okay, do we have a motion to adopt all elements of both the academic and finance portions of the agenda? Okay, do we have a second? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? No abstentions? Okay. One abstention. We'll move to the legal part of the agenda. Let's go, let me go to Ms. White, because I know she raised an issue earlier. Go to Ms. Spade.
So just for clarity, at the business meeting last week, we tabled the idea of co-locations, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And this week, as part of legal, there's another ask, which is applying, approving an application for a state waiver to make the class sizes larger. Is that correct?
That's right.
So I'm making a motion to table that as well.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay, discussion on the motion, Ms. Pollack?
Well, I just want to say that as we discussed last week, this is something that we need to move on. We've spent several months going through this, analyzing the data, seeing where and why certain class sizes were too large, rebalancing where we could. And I think as we discussed last week at the business meeting, the issues are predominantly in certain regions, and they are facilities driven, and there is a great deal of loyalty actually in those areas where there are some overcrowded schools which cannot be added to. And we had, as you will notice in the application, we have made the condition that if a school is making AYP, that we would ask for a waiver from any class sizes, and we've asked for small additions to the lower grades and somewhat larger additions to the upper grades. The alternative is, and I mean, we have to do this in order to either enlarge and find new teachers for those classes, or we have to, we are not in compliance with the law. So it is not something that we can do, and I think we had some discussion as to what it would cost to add all those teachers, which would also require, because so many of the schools where we have the problem are in areas where we couldn't add if we wanted to, would require a lot of redistricting, which would be very unpopular with a lot of the communities where it would happen. And the requirements of adding additional teachers and basically transporting kids to different schools is a substantial amount of money. I don't know, Mr. Leon worked out some of those numbers. That money would have to come from someplace. I mean, that we're talking about $1.5 million that would have to come out of the budget some other place. So this is the recommendation of the Office of Academic Services. And it's something that we cannot wait on.
I think,
How much,
Mr. Chair,
what are you supposed to do, sir? How much, hold up, folks, if we could quiet down so we could finish this conversation, we would appreciate that. Ms. Pollack, I know we can obviously talk about the things we talked about in session, because it's on the, I can answer the question that I asked you currently. Well, we got a public vote now. I'm sorry, Ms. Spade, I'm sorry, we did ask Ms. Spade.
I was also in agreement with Nakia, but how much time do we have to make this decision? Can we just table it and move to
I'm comfortable
another
with
date? Because I'm not comfortable right now with voting on this item.
Well, I guess I would ask you what additional information you would even consider.
Well, I have to, I'm sorry. I can honestly say to table it for right now, just because I think that there are a couple of other things that need to be worked out in terms of co-locations and in terms of logistics for the co-locations that has not been done yet. And I think that that deserves a bit more attention and more conversation. And so my comfort level is one in which certainly to be ethical and certainly not to break the law, but also to be well informed about what this means and how it affects the children at their prospective schools, and especially in relation to the co-location plan. So that's Respectfully, I do understand and I do hear what you're saying, Ms. Pollock. However, I think that it is a gateway to co-locations, and I just want to be very comfortable with making that decision.
And that's fine. I don't know that there is any real nexus between this issue and co-locations. The schools where this is the issue are not schools that are currently considered for co-location or consolidation. It's just the opposite. They're schools that are full. But, Roger?
Can I say
Wait, sir, you're out of order. You're out of order. If you could please take a seat. We're at public participation. We're going to continue with our meeting, sir. If you want to come to Martha and Elsie and raise whatever question you have, we'll deal with it that way. This is very much out of order. If you could come to Martha, please, and Elsie, we'll address that. Ms. Spade, you good? If you can just raise it to Martha, we'll address it. Just come down to Martha and we'll address it. Just like you brought the contract, if we allowed Mr. Del Grasso to speak. And I'm just asking you to come down to Martha and raise whatever you want to. That's all I'm asking.
But it's an issue that...
If you could please come down, whatever concern you have, please raise it with Martha. Can you just please raise it with her and we'll address it. That's all. Just if you give it to her, we'll address it. Just like you brought the contract earlier, we addressed that. Any other questions about Ms. Wilson?
I think...
Sir, can you? Okay, I hear you.
I think it is important that the board understand that the district's request for the waiver to class sizes is not to create large classes. It is not tied to the co-location discussion that has begun. The timing is such that they are both appearing. Let us be clear that the district has probably always had cases or instances where we may have had one or two over the statutorily required numbers. I am not talking about schools where the facility causes us to have larger class sizes because of overcrowding and because of parents' reluctance to have their children move to a school that has available space. I am not talking about that. What I am talking about are in cases where we have numbers that exceed the state statute. And in statute, we're given specific numbers for specific grade levels. But when you go one or two above that, it is not necessarily that you are breaking the statute. It subjects you to people raising the issue. If we have a waiver, that waiver will allow us to go one or two. We do check the organization of all schools when we do the budget review. And when we look at those, we look at class size, we look at the number of teachers. Teachers are added on an as-needed basis. We must remember we are a district with a declining enrollment, and we do not necessarily have all of the numbers necessary for teachers, but the teachers that are needed are supplied. So as a point of clarification, not to ask you to change your mind, but as clarification.
Let me ask you, Ms. Wilson. I'm sorry, just ask this to come back to Ms. White. Ms. Wilson, how much money would we need to hire enough teachers to meet the statutory guidelines? And also, actually, let me preface that question with this. Today, we found out that the special master found that the cuts the state gave us last year were unconstitutional. And I want to remind the public again that the Newark District was a part of that lawsuit, The Newark District made arguments as a part of that lawsuit, so part of the evidence that was before the court in reaching that decision were arguments brought by the Newark District under the leadership of this board. The reason that the Newark District was in that lawsuit was because of the leadership of this board. But my question, though, so hopefully maybe we'll get some new money coming in. We have to see what happens. The issue has to go up to the Supreme Court. If it comes in, it's probably not coming in this fiscal year.
No,
it'll
it's
be
not.
for next fiscal year.
No, it's not.
But so I wanted to preface my question with this, because we would all love to do everything, right? We would love not to have a $75 million deficit for next year, which we'll talk about tomorrow, right? So we would all love to have enough money to do everything that we know we need, and when we don't like the cuts, we ran into court like we did last year, and we got a result that'll hopefully bring some money back. But that brings me to the question: how much money will we need to meet the statute, to meet the caps district-wide for this fiscal year?
At this point in time, a review of all schools has been completed for the next fiscal year. We do not need additional teachers for this school year, okay? I don't lie, okay? Let me be very clear. We do not need additional teachers for this school year. In fact, we had additional teachers that we have had to carry in our budget, because when we reviewed school organizations in October, as we do after the October 15th count, it was found that we had excess teachers based on the number of students. In schools where there were teachers needed, those teachers were supplied. If we have a hard to fill, and Dr. Miller can speak to that, if we have a hard to fill position, like a math, a chemistry, a bilingual position, it does not mean that we did not, fund that position. For the 11-12 school year, and I am quoting from memory, I think there was a request for, I think it was about 100 new teachers. That is included in the budget for next year, based on mostly the addition of special ed classes, because we have worked to bring students back to the district for which we might be paying tuition in an out-of-district program as one of the ways to provide more available funds. I will discuss that matter tomorrow during the budget hearing. It is a part of my presentation.
Okay. So we'll tell them. Ms. White.
So I got, as a point of clarification, in terms of it being or not being related to co-locations, but to further clarify, is it related or could it be related to consolidations? And furthermore, from my understanding, the class sizes as mandated by the state are K to 5 or 18, right? 18 to 1 ratio. 6 to 8 is a 21 to 1 ratio. Am I correct? Am I right with these numbers? I may be a little bit off. And 9 to 12 is 24 to 1 ratio, right? Or so, if I'm off with those numbers or slightly off, I just wanted to know how much higher are we looking to go in the class sizes?
You're correct and in the ballpark on those numbers. I'll make sure I have them tomorrow evening, because I don't remember them off the top of my head. What I said was, if you heard me clearly, was that when we speak to class size waivers, you can go above the statute, but there is no tolerance above the statute. But there may be complaints registered because you have gone 1 or 2 above the statute. With the waiver, I don't have the numbers, Ms. Pollack has them, of what we're actually asking for by the various grade levels. And I think it's a tolerance of, Ms. Pollack?
We're asking for kindergarten through 3rd grade, 24, and 4th grade through 12th grade, 30.
I'm sorry. Ms. Pollack? I'm sorry. For clarity, so from K to 3rd, you're asking for 24.
From 21 and 23 to 24.
Okay, and then
from 4th through 12th, 30.
30.
And that becomes the limit. That's not necessarily the class size, but that becomes the new limit.
But so those numbers basically are the threshold for the class sizes, right? Those are the
upper limits.
Those are the upper limits. Let me just play a case scenario. If the schools are consolidated and you have students that are in a school and it goes beyond that 30 or it goes up to 32, 33, I'm just interested I'm just thinking out loud.
You'd have
I'm
to
just
open another
interested to know
class.
how the kids are able to kind of get that one-on-one attention, even beyond the 24 number, right? Because that's so that's just my question.
Right. Well, I would have to defer to either Superintendent Terrell or Mr. Leon to answer the questions of the class size.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Wait a minute, Mr. Wells will respond to that.
Just for further clarification, we currently have students enrolled in some of our buildings that are currently 30 to 35. We do have students currently, but now we are out of compliance because of that. The waiver gives us an opportunity because in most cases, these classes are in the east and in the north, and there are some sprinkled in the south. But we have students already. Our classes are overcrowded. The waiver gives us an opportunity to be in compliance. Are we saying we want 30 students in a classroom? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the reality is we do have that many students in the classroom now, which is the basis of the lawsuit. Now, because of the budget, of course, we'd like to open other classrooms. That's not a reality right now.
Yes, it is. Awesome.
I think
That's what's happening. In the schools where the classes are overcrowded, parents do not want to move their children anywhere else. So we do have to address the issue. We have overcrowded classrooms as it stands.
Put them in a charter. Why don't you take some of the charter teachers you've already hired somehow? Bring them over there.
I think a couple points. Ms. Terrell's point is that disproportionately, those schools that have overcrowded classrooms, we could offer those families an opportunity to redistrict, transfer their kids to another school. Those parents don't want to do that. These parents are saying, I would rather be in an overcrowded school in the east than to have to go to some of our under capacity schools in other wards. Right? So a lot of this is parent choice. Right? This is what Ms. Terrell is saying. And the other issue I want to be very clear about too. This waiver is just a waiver of the legal cap. That doesn't mean we're saying this is what we want. This is just simply says to protect us legally. From a board, we can have our own policy that says regardless of what is going to get us in trouble in a lawsuit, we don't think class sizes that are getting to 27, 28 are in the best interest of kids. So we have to be able to distinguish what could get us in legal trouble, especially when we don't have the resources we need. Let's be clear, we had a $77 million cut last year, $75 million this year, $150 million in 2 years. Do we understand? That's real money. $150 million in 2 years. The lawsuit, maybe we'll get some money back. We went to court last year, maybe we'll get some money back. But until then, these are the very difficult decisions we have. These aren't pleasant decisions. And we have parents who are saying that they would rather have their kids in the east in an overcrowded classroom than to send them to other wards. And obviously we want to place a premium on parents being able to make decisions. So, but my point is this, my real point is this. We have to be able to separate the legal issue from what's the right policy for our kids. This is just to protect us from a litigation standpoint. That's not us saying this is what should be our goal for our class sizes for our kids.
Mr. President.
I'm sorry, Miss. I'm sorry, Miss Pintor.
I also just want to make a statement that for many years, the overcrowding in some of our schools that was said in the East and in the North Ward have occurred. Also, a lot of these schools are still high-performing schools. They're some of the highest-performing schools in the district. So there's a separation between, like President Jeffrey said, between what legally we need to protect ourselves and what has already been occurring for many years. There's no way we can put these kids, because the parents do not want their kids to go out of their ward and be bused. Where there is overcrowding, predominantly, like I said, in the North and in the East.
Mr. President.
Are there any other? Sure. Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis.
I want to support Board Member White's motion to table this because I can't see us trying to hire and raise expectations on teachers, but then telling teachers you have to take 30 children in your classroom and you not knowing what level they on, going through 30 children and trying to teach them all to make sure that they go to the level that they need to go, it's just overwhelming. So I think that the best thing that we could do tonight is to table this resolution and let's get some true professional advice on what we should do in order to uncrowd our classrooms in this district.
Mr. President, I've been waiting very respectfully. If you notice, you asked me to bring my point to the table, which I did. So in terms of legal troubles, I am challenging under the Sunshine Law, and I'm making a point of order under which Mr. Jeffries will have to rule. You can rule me out of order if you wish, but I am raising a legal question. This is on your agenda as point number 12 on the board agenda, which I hold in my hand. The resolution is not present. Also, there is no background information to the resolution. So I am questioning your right at this time. I'm not questioning your right to this. I'm questioning at this time in terms of the Sunshine Law, not giving the community a heads up so that we can participate adequately at your next meeting before you adopt whatever resolution you adopt.
The resolution is in the packet that's not available to the public?
Well, it's not available to the public, correct.
No, is the resolution in your packet?
No, it is not. And so therefore, I am questioning your legal, we're talking about...
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to save you legal problems.
I hear you, man. I got you, brother. Yeah,
I'm not the founder of the Law Academy for nothing.
I hear you. The resolution is not in the packet that's available to the public?
It is not in the packet, and it has not been adequately submitted to the community.
The actual language has to be...
It is not in the packet, and it is illegal for you to move on this motion.
Okay. Savar, that's what I would tell you. I mean, if you want me to respond to it, or you can respond to it.
But doesn't the resolution have to be in the packet?
Is to approve the equivalency.
But isn't the resolution supposed to be in the packet?
I would have thought it would have been. They send it to us. Okay. They may have it listed as resolution. The resolution.
The council said
I don't get these packets. I don't get these packets. I get the agenda. So, but I don't think that, I think they've got notice, and it was, do you want me to respond?
What's your legal? I would recommend we...
Okay, so I want me to respond?
Make it available.
That's
gonna make
There's too much? Okay,
we don't have to wait on backup stuff and everything.
All right, so let's deal with it later this week. We'll deal with it. So is this good enough?
I think it's good enough, but the board may not want to. Do you want me to respond? You want you to respond?
Well, on the legal piece, that what this
Okay.
means on this.
The board chair has asked me to respond. I am told we never put actual resolutions in the packet. They are available if people ask, but they are not in the packet because we had apparently gotten some feedback long before I got here that they were too big. With regard to the discussion of this matter, this was done in, excuse me, sir.
I need to hear.
This was done in executive session, appropriately so, because as you know, it is the subject of litigation, and that is an exclusion from the Sunshine Laws to go into executive session for topics which are the subject of litigation. And that is why it was discussed in executive session.
However, Council, you put it on the public agenda as point number 12, and in every other point on this agenda, there is supporting information and resolutions to any of those motions which you're now taking.
Sir, we've heard you, sir. Sir,
Yes.
we've heard you. We will revisit whether we should have the resolutions available. It was honestly my assumption that they were made available.
Okay.
I'm finding out that hasn't been the practice. We're going to revisit that.
I'm going beyond the resolution,
Right.
sir. I'm saying that...
Sir,
Yes.
we really need to, if you can come to Martha, seriously,
I
because
just did.
everyone would just line up and speak like
No,
that. If you
no,
have a point of order, please come down
have
here.
to rule.
If you...
You have to rule.
Our council did rule, we accept her decision. If you have other issues,
Okay,
you
you're
can
ruling
feel
me out of
free
order.
to bring them up to Martha.
We are not in violation of the Sunshine.
Okay, let it be known
Now,
for
that's
the
it. We're going to
record.
continue with the meeting, sir.
Yes,
If you
sir,
would
let it
mind
be known
just
for the
taking a seat.
record.
If you have a point of order, please raise
Yes,
it with Martha.
I did.
Then come back.
I did.
I need you
Let
to
it
have
be
other
known
issues.
for the record that this objection was raised at a public
This
meeting.
is all on the record. She
Okay,
just
that's
made her
right.
decision on the
But
record. This
then
is all on the
we'll
record.
deal
It's
with that as
recorded.
the
We're
law.
all on the record. There's nothing secret here. Do we have any other question? We have a motion from Board Member White. It was seconded by Board Member Lewis to table the resolution regarding the waiver, which again is just a legal waiver. It's not about what our policy should be for what our class sizes ought to be. It's a legal waiver in light of the fact that we've had $150 million worth of deficits, and we have parents who are saying they prefer to have their kids in overcrowded schools that have met AYP than to send them in under-capacity schools that haven't met AYP. But this is just a legal waiver that's distinct from what our policy ought to be for what our class sizes ought to look like. Ms. White.
Respectfully, again, I do understand that there are class sizes, both in the north and the east, that are larger than typical. However, the South Ward, the West Ward, and the Central Ward, where co-locations and consolidations will be affected most, I'm not quite sure if those class sizes are the same as they are in the east and in the north. So it's just still a lot of questions for me, and I really feel comfortable where I stand.
That's not true about the South. Do we? In the table, and I guess, Ms. White, you're motion to table, you want more information, you have some questions, you like more clarification. Okay.
Yes, I agree with it. For more clarity, we should table it.
Can we, would you accept a friendly amendment that we table this, because we're going to have an April 5th business meeting, because we're going to have our budget hearing tomorrow, we're going to have a forum on the co-locations the 31st, then we're going to have a business meeting April 5th. So can we have a friendly amendment to table the class size waiver resolution until the April 5th business meeting?
I am more than comfortable with that. I think that that's more than enough time for both the board and myself to kind of vet this whole idea and what it means and how it will ultimately affect children and class sizes and teachers.
Any more discussion on the motion, or can we proceed to a vote on the motion? So I think we'll call the roll on this one.
Okay.
The motion is to table the class size waiver until April 5th business meeting.
Okay, Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Pintor? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Ms. Davis-Spate?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Okay, it's tabled.
Okay, does any board member have any old or new business that he or she wants to raise?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lewis.
I still am requesting to meet with the special ed department about the children with IEPs. Also want to meet with them about the children that was relocated from North Vocational, American, oh my God, AVC. I also want them to meet with me and explain to me where these children are. I did receive a list. From West Region Superintendent Mr. Teller Dr. Teller before he left, but it was still questions about that list
We will come back.
because the list didn't compare to the same list of enrollment from the children at AVC. So I need to meet with Dr. Marinaro and his staff on questions about ABC, the children that we have lost through that transition. What are the plans to relocate them children, to find them children and bring them back into the district? Because I believe that when we closed ABC, it was poor management. It was a poor process. So I believe that it was our fault while we lost these children. So now I just want to know what type of plan do they have to try to find these children, bring them back, have they contacted these children? Because the bottom line is it's our responsibility to educate every child in the city of Newark, no matter what disability that they may have. Secondly, I also want us to also look into children who have been even transferred to alternative programs, really investigate why our children being transferred into alternative programs, because I have been getting phone calls not just from parents, but from teachers and other administrators who are concerned about principals transferring children into alternative program just because they have an IEP and they don't want to have nothing to do with the child. So I want a full investigation on any child that's recommended to go into alternative program from a principal. I want a full investigation before that this transfer is okay by the district. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Rell talked about you should be able to sit down with her this week, raise whatever questions you have regarding special education issues, any other concerns you have. As always, any board member can always meet with the district leadership to address any concerns that a board member has. Ms. White?
For clarity, is that part of the curriculum committee?
I'm sorry.
Is the special ed committee that he's talking about, is that not part?
Well, yes, the Special Education Committee is a part of that. I don't know if Mr. Lewis is raising his question in his capacity as chair or just as
He specifically said special ed, so I just wanted to make sure that the protocol was very clear and the way in which it worked.
Right.
I'm acting as the chair of special education.
Okay.
As a subcommittee of curriculum, right? Okay, thank you.
So I think, Mr. Lewis, if he can wear his hat as an individual board member. Any individual board member has the right, obviously, to meet with district staff at any time about district business. No need, to wait for the meeting or no need to ask for permission. Any board member can meet with district leadership and the superintendent to address issues affecting our kids. To the extent, Mr. Lewis, you want to operate in your capacity as chair of the Special Education Subcommittee, it would make sense to collaborate with Ms. White in terms of any policy outcomes that come out of your meetings. But in either hat that you wear, you're more than welcome, obviously, Mr. Lewis, to meet with district leadership at your pleasure and as consistent with the district schedule.
And can I just add, though, just because you're being very magnanimous and you're a really good guy, but I would call all of our attention to our board operating procedures,
which are on the web, I understand, so the public can see the operating procedures that the board itself discussed and adopted for how it would do business. And Mr. Lewis, that would discuss exactly under what circumstances you talk to district staff, and particularly, I think the goal is to go to the superintendent.
Absolutely. No question. No question. I mean, just to make sure that the public understands too, this is a very important conversation. We went through 20 hours of a retreat over the summer that led to our operations manual, so that we could really function in consistent with the best practices. But no, we absolutely, board members, we need to go through the superintendent. We shouldn't go direct to staff unless the superintendent has designated certain staff for certain matters. Any other old or new business any board member wants to raise?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lewis.
I just want, because Ms. Pollack said what she said, I just had the itching to answer to that. I think the reason why we're in the position that we are in is because every time we want to contact somebody, we had to hit 1 for Lucy, 3 for Bob, 4 for Chancey, and 6 for Adam. I think that it's hard for us as board members to do our responsibility and do our duties when every time when we want to ask a question to a particular party, we have to go to do someone else to get the answer. I don't believe in third-party conversations. I'm sorry, I'm just against it. If you want to talk to Marquise Aquila Lewis, you talk to Marquise Aquila Lewis. Don't go to Juan Rivera or Shavar Jeff. I just don't believe in that. I believe if we want adequate information and real information, I believe that sometimes we have to go to the right source in order to get it. Because it may be some stuff, Mr. Rell, no disrespect to you, but it may be some stuff that you can't share with us, right? That somebody else can tell us. But as in your position as superintendent, it may be some information that you can't share with us because of conflicts. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that sometimes rules are, well, obviously we're in Newark, so we can say this, that sometimes in Newark, rules are made to be broken. So I think sometimes.
But let me first of all, I love my colleague and brother, Mr. Lewis.
I just want to make the point because I get frustrated that every time I want to ask something, I always get a phone call and say, oh, you can't talk to this person. You got to talk to this person. It aggravates me because when I ran to answer the people. I didn't run to answer nobody but the people. And it seemed like every time I try to get questions for the people, I get this block dropped right in front of me. I'm sorry, I'm tired, I'm upset, I'm angry as hell because sometimes we have to go to the right source to get information.
Mr. Lewis, my very good friend and brother, Mr. Lewis, we have to be very careful about saying rules are made to be broken, because it's very important for the public to know we didn't just come up with this policy out of thin air. We went through 20 hours of a retreat, and there are laws in the state of New Jersey and ethical laws that apply to all board members in the state. And to be frank, it was a violation of some of these laws that produced state takeover 16 years ago. We're very focused on trying to get local control back. This board spent a ridiculous amount of hours in November going through every last subsection under QSAC. There's over 100 and some sections. We went through every last section, sat down with the district, sat down with the senior team to make sure that we're set up for local control. And so we cannot get that, and we will not. If you look at the governance section, if you miss 2 areas, you're already below the threshold for local control. So we need to understand that. There's 100 points. If you miss 2 points, because in any of 2 different sections, you lose all of the points for that section. That in enough will be enough to get you below local control. One of those goals are, to what extent do board members implement the ethical canons of this state in terms of how we go about interfacing with the district? I would love to, I get, concerns from parents every day. Such and such school, my kid's IEP is not being implemented. Such and such school, the vice principal put their hands on my baby. I'd love to be able to just call the vice principal and say, hey, what happened? That's illegal. That's unethical. Well, I have to come to Ms. Terrell and say, Ms. Terrell, this is what I heard from the parent. I need a report. And I want the report from the vice principal, right? And we can ask certain questions about those reports. We can even deal with some of the senior team, but we can't go into schools. That's illegal. And if we do it, if we break that rule, guess what? It'll be another 16 years that we're complaining about the state has us in takeover. So the manual we came up with wasn't us picking this stuff out of air. This is the law. This is how boards who have local control function in the best way. And so it's very important for people to understand that. So even when you hear some of us board members say, this is what the district told me, this is the analysis I've gotten. I'm not in the school. If I wanted to be, if we're going to be principals, we'd have to wear that hat, but we don't. So it's very important for folks to understand that this is the law of the state of New Jersey. And not only does this hurt us as a board from a local control standpoint, each one of us as individuals can be removed from this board for violating the ethical rules of the state. So these are individual obligations we have, and these are obligations of the whole board. And so, Mr. Lewis, some rules are not made to be broken. Some are, right? You got civil disobedience, but we got to be careful about which ones we pick to break, because if we break some of these rules, not only could it hurt any of us as individuals, it could hurt this whole board, it could hurt this whole city, because we don't need the reality is this, if I'm totally frank about this, the state, I believe, is looking for a reason not to give us local control. If we be totally frank about it. They're looking for reasons not to. So if we give them easy reasons because we're breaking some of the ethical rules, they'll use that as a reason not to. Right? We believe 16 years is entirely too long. So are we a bit more by the book than some folks may be comfortable? Probably so, because we really want the people to be re-empowered. A lot of the issues we talk about is because 280,000 people in the city are disfranchised. We complain about Governor Christie and the commissioner. They do this because they can right now, because our voice is advisory. We have to advise, we got to recommend, we got to elbow our way in the conversation, to elbow our way in the meetings, because we don't have the authority and the power. We want to get it back. Part of how we get it back is we got to dot our I's and cross our T's with some of these ethical rules. So it's very important for people to know that.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're moving down.
Mr. Lewis.
I want to clarify what I said. They steady say board members don't break rules, but we have people in this district who are breaking rules, clearly. And it's some information that I'm not going to put public, but I will be presenting to this board about some rules that some of these staff members have been breaking. People have been breaking rules. I'm not going to say names, but somebody said last week that they wasn't hiring. They wasn't advertising hiring for some of these schools. But I got proof. I got an envelope full of proof of advertisement for job hiring. I got proof from a visiting list that people from Bard, people from these 5 schools have been visiting HR. So we talk about breaking the rules. This is some stuff that I'm going to present to the board.
Lewis, if you have complaints in that regard, we should definitely give those to the district, because Ms. Terrell's telling me this is the first time she's heard about these. So it'd be very important if we have complaints about very serious issues, because those are very serious, very serious complaints. We definitely want to have those investigated so that we don't have any impropriety happening. Dr. Miller?
I would like to see the proof of that, too.
Any other old business or new business?
Mr.
Lewis.
Hold on. Because people want proof. Our visiting records at Newark Public Schools show that January 26, 2006, from 9:30 to 11:30, Bard College,
Mr. Lewis.
HR.
Mr. Lewis, specific.
So is that lie or is that the truth? That's the visiting record.
Mr. Lewis, I think any specific allegations you have where you believe the district may have misrepresented facts to this board or broke the rules, as you said, if you could please refer those to legal, we'll make sure legal investigates them, and then we'll have a report come back to the board. But whatever proof, whatever evidence you have, where you think misrepresentations have been made or improprieties have been committed by district staff, please refer those to legal, and as a board, we'll make sure they're investigated. And then with that report, to the extent it doesn't involve confidential information, we can share with the people, we can share with the public, right? Any other old or new, Dr. Miller?
Just briefly, let me remind you that all personnel transactions are shared with the public and the board monthly in this packet.
Any other old or new business any board member wants to raise? We just have the two. Okay. No other old or new business. Okay, we need to entertain a motion to go into executive session. We have two legal-related matters regarding two challenges regarding two candidates for the upcoming school board election. Because it involves a legal matter, the discussion of the board has to be held in executive session. However, any votes on the resolutions that are before the board would be made in public. So we need to have the discussion in executive session. We will come out of executive session and then have a public vote on the matters regarding the two candidates that are before the board, which will be discussed in executive session. So if maybe we should, maybe. I would like to entertain a motion for the board to go in executive session to deal with two challenges to two candidates for the upcoming school board election. The discussion, again, would be in executive session. We will come back and vote publicly. We have a second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? We have to, yeah. Legal, again, to clarify, let me clarify this too, I'm sorry. Let me clarify that, we'll clarify this when we come back. Right, the bottom line is the legal discussion is in executive session. We will come back and vote in public. Can we have, do we have a facilities manager who could open up room 205 for us, please? Thank you. Okay. I need a motion to come out of executive session. Okay, so do we have a motion to?
We would have done that in there. Okay.
Should do it on the record.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to come out of executive, to return to the public session?
Yes.
Is there all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? So we have two challenges to the positioning of two candidates on the ballot. One is Mr. Philip Sillinger, and it's a challenge concerning the signatures on his nominating petitions. I'll turn it over to Ms. Pollack, if you can maybe quickly describe the nature of the challenge and It want to be very clear. The board is following the recommendations of council. I'm going to turn on both of these petitions. We're going to turn to council so she can describe her recommendation. She can briefly describe her reasoning for the recommendation. That'll tee up a vote of the board based upon her recommendation.
Okay, I think...
First, Seelinger, we'll do one at a time.
Right, but this applies to both, that the law favors a liberal stance on candidacies, and in any close call on these issues, the law favors a candidate to be allowed to go forward on the ballot. With regard to Mr. Seelinger, the issue was with regard to whether or not the signatures on his nominating petition match signatures in the election records. In a few cases, in the opinion of the school district, they did not. And when we notified Mr. Seelinger that those signatures, that his petition would be disqualified because of that, he came forward with evidence to establish that those people were, in fact, registered voters in Newark. And that was sufficient in my mind, to recommend it to go forward with the board.
So the recommendation of the general counsel for the district is to reject the challenge to the nominating petitions of candidate Philip C. Seelinger Jr., which would allow him to continue to remain on the ballot. Do we have a motion to accept the recommendation of council? We have a second. We'll call the roll.
Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Lamort?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Pintor?
Abstain.
Recuse?
Oh, I have to recuse myself, sorry.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Ms. Davis Spate?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
I should have said in the beginning, board member Pintor has recused herself from any decision-making and the discussion of the board on both of these petitions. So I should have said that from the beginning. She's recused herself not only from the vote, but also from the discussion. So she had no involvement in these discussions. It's also going to be the case that the legal counsel's analysis, a brief analysis of her recommendation, will be made available to the public. So if any member wants to know her reasoning for these recommendations, that'll be made available. We want everything to be transparent. We want folks to understand we're following the recommendation of the district's lawyer in terms of these decisions. These are legal decisions, and we need to follow the recommendation of council. The second is a challenge to the candidacy of Dr. Chris Purnell regarding whether or not she's a resident of Newark since April 27, 2010, as required by the one-year residency requirement under the law. Ms. Collins.
This was a challenge brought against the Purnell petition based on the claim that the requirement that every advisory board member must be a resident of Newark for a year immediately prior to his or her appointment to the board, that was not met, and that Ms. Purnell was in fact not a resident of Newark for the year prior. And the primary evidence to support this was voting records of Ms. Purnell. Based on, again, the general thrust of the law, which is to allow candidacies to go forward, or to be liberal in your analysis of whether to allow candidacies to go forward, and a research into the issue of what does residency require, and there is some law on that out of the Department of Education in the context of school board elections. And while the commissioner has come to the position over time that to in defining whether a person is a resident is to place emphasis on whether the board member has demonstrated an intention to remain in the district on a permanent basis. And the commissioner has
Please, can we have order so we can hear the rest of the council's analysis, please?
Has identified a series of factors, including physical presence in the district, home ownership, receipt of utility bills at the residence, whether your kids are in the schools, whether your pets are located there, whether you're involved in civic activities or religious associations, as evidence one way or the other whether or not you are a resident in a particular place where you're running for the school board. And while your previous voting history is a factor, the failure to vote previously in a district or the history of voting elsewhere is not conclusive as to the issue of residency according to the Department of Education and the Commissioner's decisions. The burden of proof being on the challenging party to establish by preponderance of the evidence that a person is not a resident in the district, the recommendation of council was that the evidence presented by candidate Purnell, and it was a range of evidence, and I don't know whether you want me to go through that.
I think it would be good to summarize for the public some of the evidence that was presented so people can know what's before the board. We want the public to understand what was before us. Go ahead.
And I'm going to identify some of the evidence. I'm not going to identify all of the evidence. But the evidence included a deed to candidate Purnell's house, dated back to May of 2006.
Can we please just have order? We're almost finished, so we can just listen to the rest of the analysis. And this summary will be made available to the public as well.
Well, loan documents dated back to early 2008. Listing this address and listing it as the address in Newark as her primary address. Copies of water bills going back to 2006 at the Newark address. Pest treatment bills going back to several years at the Newark address. Medical bills, invoices for deliveries at the Newark address, and several credit card statements over a period of years, going back as early as 2006, sent to the Newark address. That's just some of the evidence that we looked at.
So again, also want to provide some context because I sent a statement out last week. And I want to make sure people understand the full backstory for that. After our meeting last week, I had conversation with council, and at that point, we had thought that the state superintendent of elections would investigate this and would make the determination as to the candidate's residency. Subsequent to that, the superintendent of elections decided that she would not. That the law required the board to make the decision. Then the council, in reaction to that, that's how that got us to where we are right now. Right? They kicked it back to us. They said the law requires the board to make this decision. The board has been very clear ever since that point that the recommendation of council would be the decision of this board. This is a legal question. This is a legal and evidentiary question. And the council just went through some of the evidence she had. This is her recommendation. We've been very clear from the beginning. We've been very clear from the beginning that legal, as we do with everything too, I want to be clear about this, as we are generally, when it comes to legal matters, we have to rely upon the recommendation of our legal counsel. Ms. Pollack gets paid to make these sorts of determinations. So again, this is the recommendation of Ms. Pollack based upon the evidence that was presented to her, and also based upon the law, which, as Ms. Pollack said, the law is very liberal to say that the people should make decisions about who they want to elect, and that a board, if we're going to start kicking people off of the ballot, and this is what she said the law requires, that if the 9 of us are going to be the gatekeepers of who 280,000 people can vote for, we better have some very strong evidence, and it better be crystal clear. And so based upon what was presented to her that she laid out in terms of water bills, deeds, medical bills, et cetera, credit card bills, et cetera, and given that the challengers, as Ms. Park said, they have the burden of proof. They have the burden of showing that someone should not be on the ballot. That's the basis for her recommendation. This board, we will see if this board will follow the recommendation, but I have urged the board to follow the recommendation of legal counsel.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lewis.
Hello. On mic on?
Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis.
I want to, Ms. Holder, based on the evidence that council had presented to this board, at first I started to remove myself from this vote, but based on the evidence that the council have shown, we have no proof to say that Ms. Purnell don't live in Newark besides her voter record, which legislation says that she don't have to vote in the city in which she lives. She could vote, she could have a house in Piscataway and live in Newark and still vote in Piscataway. She don't have to vote in Newark. So based on the evidence, this is what this board is voting on because of the evidence that been presented before us, far as you can't, hold on. You can't say all the evidence that they presented is original copies. Even some documents I had questions about, they gave original documents. So that's what we voting on the documents that the General Counsel had presented to us. We vetted this. Don't think that we all didn't ask questions, everything. We all asked questions about our concerns, and counsel assured us that these documents was legitimate and that these documents should be taken in consideration from this board.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Do we have a motion to accept the resolution and recommendation of council? We have a second. If we can call the roll.
Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Lamort?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Mr. Lewis?
Based on the evidence, yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Romero?
Yes.
Ms. Davis-Spade?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
All in favor?